What's up? Lucy, come here. I want to introduce you to my homegirl, Lucy, over here. Just giving you a moment. What's up, Facebook Live? I'm going to be talking about something pretty darn controversial. This might offend some of you, and that's okay. But I wanted to kind of temper it a little bit, buffer it a little with this cute dog, so that when you get offended about what I'm about to say, when you feel, oh, am I boring you? Am I boring you? So when you are feeling a little bit triggered by what I say, you can pretty much get a better understanding. You can actually be able to cope with what I'm about to share with you, because we're talking about depression. And before I begin, I'd like to see, where are you tuning in from? My name, if you haven't met me before, is Dr.Nima Rahmany, and I'm a chiropractor and a mental optimization coach, and I help professionals, executives, business owners, entrepreneurs who are stressed, depressed, and anxious transform and have their best year ever. And so what I've discovered in my life, the reason why I've made that transition myself is because when I went through a divorce, and then I went through a career change. I went through some of the worst darknesses going into the void that I've ever gone through in my entire life. And it got me really acquainted with this dark passenger that I have of anxiety and depression. And it was probably one of the scariest things that I've ever gone through 5-6 years ago when I went through my divorce. And then when I went through the transformation of my career, the sale of my practice, it was as though I went through another divorce all over again. So I know what it's like to basically want to end it all. In fact, it wasn't that long ago. It was, I would say, less than a year ago when I got myself to the point where I considered ending it. I considered, I reached this level of, in my career prior, where I was doing so fantastic. Everything was expanding. I had, my speaking had expanded. My message had gone to different parts of the world. And I was teaching my overview method, which is a distillation of John DeMartini's method, Andrew Bernstein's, Byron Katie's, everybody that I've ever learned, every teacher that I've ever learned on personal growth and personal development. I took all of their wisdom and put it together and created my own unique spin. And it was phenomenal. And so when I went through my career transition and the sale of my practice, I got hit so hard with a curveball that I didn't know how to react and how to respond. So all of these feelings of I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, they started creeping up again. And I started feeling the guilt and the shame, and all of those feelings that I did when I was going through my divorce was resurfacing. And it was a funny feeling. I kind of explain this whole concept of anxiety and depression and chronic fatigue and digestive problems. I experienced all of it. I didn't have enough power to get myself out of bed in the morning. I didn't think that there was any point in going on. I would take my dog, Lucy, for a walk, and then I would feel this cool feeling down my spine, and this panic. I would start having these horrible panic attacks. So when I share with you what I'm sharing from a healthcare provider's perspective, I'm also sharing it to you from a past sufferer's perspective, because I know exactly what it's like to go through those and where it comes from. And what I learned and how to transform that was groundbreaking. And since October to today, I have helped 50 people through my Powerfully Aligned program transform their feelings of stress, depressed, and anxiety, and restoring every single part and piece of their life that was broken, so that they can actually get past their story of victimhood, and they're now actually wanting to make a difference in other people's lives. In other words, they've gone from creature to creator, from victim to hero, making a difference in other people's lives. And that's actually the fundamental, end stage of this transformation from depression. So I want to have some time for a Q&A, but I wanted to also give you a little piece that might be useful for you. So please let me know, don't hesitate. Leave a comment. There'll be some extra time for Q&A. Tag somebody that you know that really needs to be listening to this, because depression friggin' sucks. It sucks to not see a purpose in your life. It sucks to look at other people and then assume that everybody's doing so amazing and you are the only one struggling and suffering. It sucks to feel ashamed, to want to go out because you don't want to talk to people, because you don't want to see other people as a reminder of your own failures, of your own inadequacies. It sucks. And I know exactly what it's like. And so what I did was I started going into these support groups for depression and anxiety. And oh my goodness, what did I see? You go into these support groups expecting to get help and support, but in essence, what you're getting is a little pity party, because misery loves company. And by consistently repeating the story of how shitty our lives are, how this chemical imbalance, how something outside of you, this disease or disorder, has got a grip over you, you are shooting yourself in the foot and you are not helping yourself. I know this is confronting to many of you who have the perception and belief that depression is a disease. Now, like diabetes, this is one of the considerations that I made. I asked this question in my group, The Art of Powerful Alignment, and somebody just all of a sudden went off because people were saying, no, it's a mindset thing. It's a choice that you make. It's a lack of appreciation, all of these things. And this woman gets really upset and she said, quit talk. We need to end the stigma. It is a disease and a disorder. It's caused by a chemical imbalance, and we need to end the stigma. And so she basically got herself out of the group soon afterwards. Let me explain to you this whole concept of chemical imbalance and this whole concept of this whole stigma that we have around it. Now, everyone in this world walks through the planet with a hierarchy of priorities and values, or what's most meaningful to them. And most of us don't have an idea of what that is. We don't take the time to ask these questions. What is most meaningful to us, second most meaningful to us in terms of our values? We have a tendency, when we don't take a look and ask ourselves these honest questions, to look at other people and inject their values onto us, living and operating in the world of, I should be, I'm supposed to be, I ought to be. And when we live in that world of injecting other people's values and not honoring our own, that discrepancy between who we authentically are compared to the fantasy of who we should be. Hi, I'm Shaheen, my aunt. Hey, what's up? It's my aunt. Who we should be, then we now have a stressful scenario. We are resisting reality. We are fighting who we truly are. And you'll notice that. And there's people that you'll see when they say, I'm taking a break from Facebook. I got to take a break from Facebook. This isn't healthy for me. I'm taking a break from Facebook and I'm going to get off of Facebook. I went through that about 3 or 4 years ago. It's only happening because we are not honoring where our gifts are, and we're looking at other people, comparing our lives to their lives and beating ourselves up for not living a life that's not truly ours. That, my friends, is one of the causes of depression. And I'm going to share with you several causes, perceptual causes, that when you live under these delusions, then you should be depressed. Let me repeat that again. A delusion is a perception when you're observing something that something should be different than the way it actually is. Okay, like Lucy shits on the floor. Lucy shouldn't shit on the floor, my dog. When she shits on the floor, if I have the delusion that she shouldn't, when she clearly is, because if I haven't taken her out or certain conditions that have happened, I haven't taken her out, I overfed her, I completely neglected her, then she should be shitting on the floor. But if I am projecting an expectation on what's happening, then it's my delusion, the reality that's here, the fantasy that it should be. The gap between the two is where the stress, the anxiety, and the depression lives. Only by removing the delusion and seeing why she should be exactly shitting on the floor can I take an inspired action to change what's going on. In other words, I've discovered there are 7 primary delusions that create depression in our lives. One of them is the unrealistic expectation of others that they should be one-sided, that they should be supportive and not challenging, that they should always be happy and not sad, that they should be sick and not unwell. And when they display the other side of that one-sided fantasy, then all of a sudden I feel angry and depressed. I get depressed. Why aren't they supporting me? So that's delusion number 1. Delusion number 2 is they should see things my way. They should prioritize what I prioritize. So whenever you feel depressed because of how somebody else is treating you, you're living with the delusion that they should be one-sided and they should live according to my values. Okay? When you combine the two, then you now have anger, aggression, blame, betrayal, criticism, challenge, depression, despair, all of the negative emotions, not just depression. You have all of them. If you expect me to live if my mother, for example, if she expects me to live a life outside of my values and adopt her own priorities, follow her path, and I live outside of her path and live according to mine, then she can turn around and say, Nima, you're depressing me, which I do that quite a bit because I live my own life. And when my parents expect me to live according to their priorities, then they become angry, they become bitter, they become depressed. And the huge transition has happened with my relationship with my parents because they've been doing a lot of work. I've been pushing their buttons quite a bit. We've been having these discussions quite a bit. And when they remove the expectation that I should live according to their values and their priorities, all of a sudden their depression turned to appreciation. So when we have unrealistic expectations, okay, according to our values, that other people, they should live exactly like we should, and they should be one-sided, then you should be depressed when other people live according to their own values, not yours. Okay? And they should be one-sided. Great. Now, depression also happens when we turn the shoulds and the expectations inward. I should be slim, not, and here's the deal. Everyone wants to be thin and rich. My friend Mark von Musser will say this all the time. Everybody wants to be thin and rich. But how many of us are actually putting the time, the effort, the resources, the energy, the desire into the gym, eating nutritious food and saying no to the shitty foods, and then, doing the necessary things when it comes to building wealth, saving money, and financial literacy? So if we live in the delusion that I should be thin and rich, and I'm depressed because I look in a mirror and I don't like my body, and then I look at my bank account because it's not really where I think it should be, and then that's the reality. And the fantasy is it should be somewhere else. And then I look at my behavior in reality, and I'm not building wealth and saving money. I'm not getting mentorship. I'm not actually working towards putting the gym and healthy, nutritious food in my schedule. Then I'm sorry, I don't deserve to be thin and rich. Period. When you remove the delusion of the should, you start looking and going, holy shit, I should be exactly where I am. I had the overview experience this weekend. It was awesome. In Vancouver, we had someone crying depressed because she was always broke. Why is it that I just can't make money? I'm always broke. Oh, crying. Oh, I just cried. In other words, she was living with the delusion that I should be wealthy. I should be wealthier. I should have more money. Then we took a look at her life, at what her life exactly demonstrates. And what did we see? Every time a dollar came into her possession, she blew it on something that she felt more meaningful, whether it was a trip, whether it was to yoga teachers training, her spiritual growth, her courses, seminars, whatever. In other words, building wealth wasn't high on her value list. The second we remove the delusion that she shouldn't be wealthier, she should have exactly the amount of money that she does have. And if she all of a sudden made a six-figure salary, I asked her, what would be the drawback if all of a sudden your boss came to you and said, you know what, you're an awesome person and you deserve and you are entitled to the wealth that you think you should have. Here's six figures. Here's a six-figure salary per year. Here's a 10 grand a month. Here you go. And I asked her and I looked at her, I said, be honest with me. She goes, oh my God, I totally would blow it. I would blow it on a trip. I would blow it on, and then she got humbled and she realized that her financial situation should be exactly as it did. Once she saw that, guess what happened? She has now got a laundry list of books that she's now reading about wealth. She never had before. All her books were about spirituality and healing and all of this amazing spiritual stuff, which got her nowhere, which is what I laugh about with the conscious community. Love you, Shine. The conscious community is always fucking broke because there's a gap between their spiritual and their material, and they think that one is exclusive, mutually exclusive of the other. Another delusion. So what's interesting is that when you remove the should and see how it is exactly as it is should be, all of a sudden you're inspired to take action. And the only way out of any disease, disorder, or shitty life situation is by taking action. But when we're holding on to a delusion that it should be different than the way that it is, guess what? We're paralyzed. We have no movement. We're sitting there trying to move forward, which is this way, but we're stuck in the past, which is this way, and we're not moving and gaining any traction. It's crazy. You can't move with your delusions. Depression basically is what I've observed. I've been able to help. I've been blessed. And I'm going to look in my own life. What got me out of that dark spell, first and foremost, is number one, I realigned myself with my true values. I kept spending time with friends and family who kept telling me what I should do after that very difficult time. Perhaps you're going through a divorce. Perhaps you're going through a life transition or any transition and you're not sure. And you're going around and you're asking all your friends, what should I be doing? What should I be doing? Then somebody's saying, you know what? Hey, what's up, Allie? Hey, you know what, Allie? You should be doing this. You know what? You should be doing that. Nima, enough. You should be going back to your basic. This is what all of my family was saying. My parents, you know what? Sorry, go back to chiropractic. You should go back to chiropractic. Get back into chiropractic. Go move to Kelowna. I was this close to moving into Kelowna and becoming an associate because I was trying to listen to what I should be doing. All of my family who meant well was like, well, you know what you do. You've been very successful as a chiropractor. Go back into chiropractic. Don't worry. You're going to be fine. You'll gain your footing. And so I listened. Every time I listened to that, and there was this feeling inside that made me more depressed because the depression is a gift. It was telling me that I was not living my life according to my values. So then I started asking myself the questions. What makes my heart soar? What makes me tick? What is it that when I'm doing it, time completely stands still? And for me, that was teaching. That was transformation. That was helping people when they're stuck. So I started reaching out and clients would come to me. And so I would constantly be saying no. I would constantly be saying no to them. No to clients. I didn't want to see any clients anymore because I wasn't interested because I'm too depressed. But then I started aligning myself with my values. I started reaching out and I started helping clients with their stress because I'm one of the best in the world. I realize my superpower is my ability to cut through bullshit and uncover the truth. So what I do is I do these breakthrough discovery calls with people who are stressed, depressed, and anxious. And what we do is we just uncover the truth. Many people have massive breakthroughs and transformations when we just uncover the truth, because the truth sets you free, as you've all heard. So I started aligning myself with my values, and I took steps in that. And then next thing I did was I dissolved resentment. If you have a past resentment, something from a past trauma that you're holding on to that's taking up brain noise, and you are extremely angry, then guess what? If you don't want to go there because it's too uncomfortable to listen to talk about, then you should be depressed. You should be depressed if you're holding on to a past resentment that you just don't want to think about or talk about, or you just want to medicate so you just can sedate yourself because you don't want to think about it because it's too fucking painful. Guess what? You should have depression. If you're holding on to resentment or regret, that's what was going on with me. I was resenting my business, these business associates of mine who left, who took all the patients and left. I wasn't owning my part of it. I wasn't seeing how it should have exactly happened exactly as it did because of my negligence or my action steps or my focus at the time, which wasn't on getting the contracts done properly. I had to remove the delusions first in order to break free of this stranglehold of my depression. And so if you're holding, then the regret came in. Then I was fully regretful. I was full on in regret. Oh my goodness. Regret and guilt. Holding on to a past guilt. And you're holding on to a decision or the belief that I should have done this differently. And I kept ruminating in my mock, purchases that I made off a whim, off of some stupid tip that I got, that I was trying to do this get-rich-quick scheme. And when I lost all that money, and I was living under the delusion that I should have not done that, and the regret, guess what? Then I should have been depressed. If you're holding on to a regret, then you should be depressed. Next question you want to ask with depression. Am I complete with all my relationships? If you have broken down relationships in your life, then guess what? Exactly, Lindsay, exactly. If you have broken down relationships in your life that you're not wanting to complete, you don't want to talk to, or you're afraid of running into these people, so you avoid certain things, you have a complete loss of power and freedom, then you should be depressed. That's right. So depression is a gift. Depression is a sign, it's a symptom that something isn't aligned properly, that you have a lack of integrity, that you're holding on to resentment, you're holding on to regret. Now the question of chemical imbalance comes up. This is the story. Go into any support group, and you're going to see people who are running with the story that I should be depressed because I have a chemical imbalance. That the depression is caused by a chemical imbalance. In other words, it's genetic. It's caused by a chemical imbalance. My brain doesn't work properly. It's chemically imbalanced. Now, the question that I have for you is this. If you have a belief that your depression is caused by a chemical imbalance, what impact does that have on your life? It has two impacts. I want you to think about it for a moment. Okay? I want you to think, I'll answer the children thing. I want you to think about it for a moment. If you have the belief that it's caused by a chemical imbalance, what impact does that have on you? Two parts. Number one, you feel this kind of sense of relief. It's like people who've been diagnosed with a disorder. They go, oh, I've been diagnosed with Hashimoto's. Oh, I've been diagnosed with thyroid problem. I've been diagnosed with cancer. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed with clinical depression, as though they wear it like it's this badge. I was diagnosed, or change the word diagnosed to ordained by the minister of the pharmaceutical industry. Okay? It is not an ordainment if somebody makes a diagnosis, because first and foremost, there's incorrect diagnosis happen more times than not. Okay, there's research out there that proves that even in the greatest clinics, the Mayo Clinic, that an incorrect diagnosis happened the majority of the time. So let's not bank on these labels, please, because you're not doing yourself a favor by banking on these labels. And the problem with these labels is that when I convince myself that I have a diagnosable illness, then it absolves me. What that says is, I'm not responsible. It's not my fault. This is what that woman who left my group said. It wasn't my fault. How come you're blaming me? It's the chemical imbalance. So I'm not to blame. Now, please understand, there's a difference between blame and responsibility. Because every time I have an event that happens that I get triggered by, the chemistry of my brain and my body gets altered. There's a chemistry, I don't want to label it imbalance, it's perfectly balanced because it's responding to the perceptions that I have. All of a sudden, if a tiger is chasing after me, I hope that my internal chemistry changes because it's now trying to change the chemistry so that I can support running and saving my life from this tiger attack. So we don't call it imbalance. It goes into a necessary action and reaction to survive. But every time I'm confronted with something that confronts me, that triggers me, I'm going to get a change in my fight or flight, in my hormones. It causes me to feel. Do you have a feeling? Guess what? If you all of a sudden take a look at your lover, your sexual partner, if you happen to be turned on by them, I'm not sure. If you happen to be turned on by your sexual partner, they walk in naked and you're turned on by them, all of a sudden, you just had a difference in your feelings. There's a hot fire going on down below. Guess what? That's caused by chemistry. That's caused by hormonal releases, which alter your chemistry based on the perceptions that you have in front of you. If all of a sudden I see something and then I get, I all of a sudden get a change in what's going on down below, that is a chemical change. You see what you said here? Once you're told, you're diagnosed, you become the story and believe it. The tissues take on those vibrations and it becomes your belief system. Then you rely on outer sources to actually help you, which is numbing you. Thank you, Nima. Got to go teach. Love your talk. Great. That's true. Leave the word vibration out because that is definitely a spiritual term. But when we're talking with the skeptics, they go, oh God, here they go with their vibration talk. Yes, it's true. We do have a vibration. We do have an electromagnetic vibration. And it's true. Once you have the belief that it's a chemical imbalance, it absolves you from the responsibility. So your beliefs that it's the chemical imbalance has the problem or the potential of actually having you believe that your choices don't matter. That's not true. Your choices matter. And I've become obsessed. I've become obsessed with teaching my clients in workshop format and in one-on-one group coaching and in group coaching how to actually transform your perceptions by asking the right questions so that you can see that thing that's triggering you, causing the chemical imbalance is it's not actually in your way. It's on the way. And when you see it from in the way to on the way, your chemistry actually changes based on your perceptions. So this woman said, how can it not be a chemical imbalance? I can't get out of bed in the morning until I take my Zoloft. That's what she said. Well, I have an answer for you. Why was it out of balance in the first place? When did it begin? These are the questions you want to ask. When did it begin? When my boyfriend dumped me. When I went through a divorce. Through the death of my child. I just had a session with somebody who's been depressed, stuck in their life. She went through 2 deaths and tried to spiritually bypass it. And guess what we did today? She completely cleared the should of why it shouldn't have happened to me. She now sees why it should have happened to her because she is a chiropractic neurological specialist. And the gift that she got out of the trigger, out of the pit that she was in, was that these 2 babies, she buried 2 of her children. The gift that she had, that she saw from this, was that those 2 children inspired her to be this incredible chiropractor that loves the shit out of every child and parent that comes into her office. And it's as though she's giving care to the lost babies. And that she just got re-inspired now to make meaning out of the death of her children, to now basically their lives mean something greater. Is now she's going to take that inspiration and transform so many other children, millions are all over the world with neurodevelopmental dysfunction and disorders. And she's going to put her heart, soul, and effort into helping these children. So she took that should, that they shouldn't have died, into, I see the value in it. I see that it was on the way, because ever since she was a child, she knew she was destined for some greatness. She knew she was destined for greatness. I know I was in tears and goosebumps throughout the whole session. And she saw that ever since she was a kid, she knew she was destined for greatness, but she realized that this great calling wasn't there until she lost baby number one. It was this, there was something wrong. They said he's got reflux, but she could tell based on her chiropractic background that he had hypertonic muscles in the top half of the body. She knew it was neurological. She said, screw you to the doctor. She went to another doctor, said, I know there's something wrong. She sees that this child, was something that was wrong with it, had a tumor and was diagnosed as terminal within 3 days of her taking them. She knew, and that, boom, all of a sudden she has this new emptiness, this new void in her life. And that was that moment she became highly interested in neurology. She buried that one child. All of a sudden she's like, that's it. I'm dedicating my life to helping children with neurodevelopmental disorders. She goes back to school and becomes a chiropractic neurology intern and a specialist with this deep desire to help and serve children. And then she loses another one. But she didn't fully grieve from all of them. So she was stuck, depressed, and we completely cleared it. She's now inspired. This story that she's had is now an inspiration that she's now, like, just watch that space. Okay, this person is going to transform the face of children of helping families and children with neurodevelopmental disorders, because she's taking that story and now she's going public with it. She was ashamed before. I was like, why? She's now expanded it. Now with the belief that I shouldn't be grieving, that it shouldn't happen to me and there's no reason for it, then you should have depression. We completely changed that story, and now her life has meaning. You know what I mean? It's your beliefs are true. So you might as well pick the delusions that are going to help have you be more fulfilled and help as many people and be as prosperous and live a life of power and freedom, rather than be depressed. Because the beliefs that you have, the stories that you make, especially the ones that my choices don't matter, I have a chemical imbalance, my choices don't matter, that's going to drive you into depression. And for you that basically can't get out of bed without taking medication, and how could it not be a chemical imbalance? Of course. If I'm sad and I take Molly, if I take MDMA, I'm going to be extremely happy. Okay? This is all true, but my personal issues with off and on depression were caused by diet. Absolutely. Great point, Dr. Jason. If you are deficient in, I'm so glad that you brought this up, Jason. Thank you, brother. Wow, mad love. If you have a deficiency of basic nutrients, then you should be depressed. Your cells have a fundamental requirement in order to thrive. If you're not giving them what's necessary, then you will be and should be depressed. Good news. Good news. You can replace that with sufficiency. So the question you want to ask yourself is, if you think you have a chemical imbalance, when did this happen? When did these symptoms happen, number one? And what was going on in my life? And understand that if you don't go after the stories, the meaning that you made out of it, and you're not complete with your past, and you haven't restored integrity with the people around you in your past relationships, and you're living with a bunch of regret and guilt, and you haven't been living authentically according to your values, and you're not giving yourself the basic amount of sufficiency in food and exercise, then I'm afraid no freaking chemical imbalance theory is going to save you. That you are the cause of the transformation in you when you decide to take responsibility. This is good news. What I say triggers a lot of people, but if you really get what I'm saying, this is actually good news. The only people who get offended are the ones who actually refuse to take the responsibility and do the necessary work and get coaching. The last thing that I really want to share with you guys about this is to get help. And by help, I don't mean sitting in a counselor's office week after week telling your poor me, woe is me, sob story, or going and telling your victimhood story from your past. It's not serving you. It just won't. It won't work. So what you want to do is to really get help and to work with somebody who actually invest in a mentor who actually is going to hold you accountable to the highest version of yourself. Not this woe is me, poor you victim story. Oh, it's not your fault. No. It's not a blame game. This is about taking responsibility. That therapist or counselor who's trying to tell you it's not your fault is actually dumping their wounds onto you. It's not serving you. It's serving them because you're going to be stuck for 10 years with the same story. It's going to be great for their pocketbook, but it's not great for you. So Phil, I'm offering a gift. Thank you for sticking around. I'm offering a gift to you. For those of you who are actually living with that and what I said triggered you enough that you actually want to take action instead of slap me across the face. I get that a lot. If I want to be the hero, I'm going to have to be the villain as well. If I'm going to be a hero in people's lives, I get to play the villain role. I'm going to offer you an opportunity to reach out to me. Send me a private message. And I'm going to select 2 people to do a free coaching call with to point them in the right direction. So 2 people is offering. I'm offering 2 people. If you really, truly want to see where the source of the problem is, it's not a disease, it's not a disorder. You can label it those things, but it becomes those things if you don't change the story early on and take action. You know, we say, someday I'll get around to it. Well, someday actually isn't on the calendar. And we only have this one life to live. I want to talk to the people who recognize that you only live once, unless you're a Hindu. But for those of you who aren't Hindu, for those of us who aren't Hindu, I would love to speak to those who really understand that you only have this one life. And you are actually wanting to take some action steps and take responsibility of dissolving that victimhood story, a victim to my chemicals, victim to the chemistry in my brain, a victim to the circumstances in my life. You gotta be willing to look beyond that and do the necessary work. I'm offering a free coaching session to 2 people. So send me a private message, and I'd love to hear from you. I'm in this kind of like generous type of mood because I've noticed that by giving, it actually you receive in abundance. I've been doing this random acts of generosity and offering coaching calls to people who are really stuck and struggling. And the breakthroughs that we've had have been so amazing that my life has become enriched. And so I want to keep paying that forward. So I'm offering 2 coaching spots to those of you who are feeling sick, stuck, stressed, and maybe at one point have seen it was a chemical imbalance, but actually are ready to change the chemistry of their brains through neuroplasticity, through action, through restoring integrity and getting honest and truthful in their lives rather than blaming their genes or chemicals. I am 100% wanting to be there for those of you. So please send me a private message. For those of you who are still on the fence and really want to understand what's going on, what I'm going to get you to do is to go to Dr.Nima.com. Okay, you go to Dr.Nima.com right there and register for my free live training webinar where I discuss the 5 shifts that you need to take to go from anxiety and depression into becoming powerfully aligned and on purpose. And I show several case studies of people who've been able to transform their physical body, their mental state into becoming purposeful, powerful, free. And I show basically how it happens. So go ahead, if you're still kind of not sure, you're still shy or whatever, just go ahead and enter your email and you're going to get the live training and watch the webinar, take notes, because people have watched that and actually have taken action and then had a complete transformation. So I ask you, is this year going exactly as you wanted it to? If you could look back when you made all those New Year's resolutions, we're now in April, the first quarter's done. How'd you do? And are you ready to turn it up? And I want to talk to 2 of those people, 2 people who are actually wanting some coaching and to transform their stressed, depressed, and anxious state. Send me a private message. And if there's no other questions, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Walter. I appreciate that. Are there any questions? Give you a moment to ask some Q&A. I'm happy to be of assistance and service to you guys. I've had an incredible day. I'm here in Victoria, British Columbia. I'm doing a locum, a chiropractic locum. Hey, Bo, what up, brother? Can't wait for you. See what happened, Bo. What happened when you started taking action? You took action, you threw your hat over the fence, and you got some coaching, and all of a sudden, things started shifting. So, Bo, you've been an incredible example of it. So, mad props to you, brother. Anybody else have any questions before I tune off? Money, baby. It's all been money. Any of my, I can't see anybody, Kathleen, anybody of my clients, you guys are there. If you haven't already, accountability helps a lot. Absolutely. I have accountability. You know, I have a coach, kicks my ass. Otherwise, I get stagnant. But coaching is for those only who want to kind of hyper speed, like go into hyperdrive for their results in their lives. So if you don't have any other questions, please just go ahead and right there, register, watch the webinar, and then reach out to me. I'm always there. If you haven't joined the Art of Powerful Alignment group, please do so. We have some pretty interesting discussions. I'm here for you when you need me. And so I just wanted to say thank you, guys. I wanted to end this with gratitude. A year ago, I wanted to, it wasn't a good time for me. And what I recognized was the value of having a coach, accountability, my coaches, for standing for me and for not allowing me to see anything but the highest version of myself. And I want to thank myself for believing in myself enough to invest in myself, because it has paid off dividends. It is massive. It has been the most incredibly rewarding experience of my life. And I really can't wait to see what the rest of this year has been. This has been one of the greatest years of my life. So I just love taking people who are stressed, depressed, and anxious and turning it around and having it be the greatest year of their lives. So thank you very much. Hopefully that was of use for you, and see you at the next perfect time.